Welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. My name is Bob Bianchi. I'm going to be taking it from 12 to 3. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you. We're covering some fascinating cases here. The Melanie Eam case, which we've been doing all day. Well, that's on lunch right now. And the McStay family murder case. This is a really fascinating case. That is going to resume at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. But first, before we go any further, and before I bring my awesome guest on, we're going to go to Top Crimes.
Here are today's top crime stories trending on Law&Crime.com and across the country. Authorities in Georgia are investigating accusations made against troubled R&B singer R. Kelly after Lifetime aired its investigative docuseries, Surviving R. Kelly. The 6-episode documentary highlights the reported decades of sexual abuse perpetrated against young girls and women by the singer and those who turned a blind eye to the abuse. Authorities reportedly reached out to several survivors featured in the docuseries, and an investigation is ongoing. A man in California is under arrest after he reportedly tried to cash in his roommate's $10 million winning lottery ticket. 35-year-old Abdul Sao-Song Yang reportedly took his unidentified roommate's winning ticket and replaced it with a different one, which he allegedly altered. Sao-Song Yang tried to turn in the $10 million winning ticket, but was arrested after lottery officials were contacted by the roommate. Sao-Song Yang now faces a charge of grand theft. Authorities in California are looking for a suspect caught on camera in a bizarre trespassing incident. Investigators believe 33-year-old Roberto Daniel Arroyo is the man seen outside of a home in Salinas, licking the doorbell in an off-putting display of digital PDA. Arroyo reportedly stood outside of the home for 3 hours before he urinated and left the scene. Arroyo remains at large. Those were today's top crime stories. I'm Anthony Velez for Law&Crime.
Well, you know, you can't make it up. If it wasn't for characters like that, none of us would have jobs. Gene Rossi, hashtag 4041. My main man was with the DOJ for close to 3 decades, has trained over 1,000 prosecutors, has a prolific trial record, is a law and legal analyst, as well as having his own show, The Gene Rossi Show, and I could go on and on and on. But Gene, welcome back to the show. Poor Gene's telling us, I guess, he can't hear. But in any event, while our producers are getting that together, I got to talk to you about that last top crime. This is the guy that's making out with, quote unquote, I think I hear you, Gene, with the doorbell. I don't know if you got an opportunity to see that, my friend, but I mean, I used to tell my staff in the prosecutor's office, you can't get mad, you can't get angry, you can't point fingers, because if it wasn't for guys like that and people that we cover on the Law&Crime, us defense lawyers, prosecutors, judges, police officers wouldn't have work.
Do you realize that that incident is going to be discussed in that prosecutor's office for the next 50 years? That is
yeah, one of the things that I think it's so creepy, right? As a prosecutor making the decision, it's not the crime of the century, but you wonder, what's this guy going to do next?
I mean, is he going to be caught kissing a mailbox? What? But Bob, here's the problem. What do you charge this guy with? I mean, should you just tell him to stop it, or should you charge him?
Well, you know what, Gene? I have a different point of view. I feel bad for that doorbell. That doorbell had every right not to be assaulted, not to be licked, not to be kissed. There was no consent. It's clear the doorbell was a completely vulnerable, object there. And I am seriously worried about the doormat, the mailbox, the door. What's next, Gene? Where does it end?
You got to understand this, Bob. Plastic has feelings.
Hashtag plastic lives matter.
Exactly.
Oh, man, Gene. I love these top crime stories that the Law&Crime Network puts together because, while there's a lot of sad stories, you get things like this, and you have to laugh when you do the work that we do, Gene. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I love criminal cases. I love them.
Yeah, on that note, when I was a baby prosecutor, the guy who I followed around and respected, he was a phenomenal trial lawyer, said, Bob, they may not pay you a lot of money, but you on the front row of human nature, and just the show itself has value, and there's a lot of truth to that.
Oh, yeah. Bob, when I was a federal prosecutor, I went through a couple of shutdowns, and they make you work without pay. So I used to tell people I love my job so much, I would work for free if I could afford it, And during the shutdown, I was working for free. So that's how much I love the job.
Yeah, absolutely. Great times and great stories. But, Gene, listen, we're covering this Eam case. This is on retrial. It is a fascinating case. Because she had been tried. It's kind of weird. I've never encountered this, where the previous jury couldn't make a decision. They said guilty, but they couldn't decide whether it was the higher charge or the lower charge. That causes a mistrial because there's not all the jurors agreeing to a particular charge. And so she's back on trial again. And we're going to have an opportunity to listen to the defense opening statement in this case, because it's kind of interesting where they're going with respect to trying to exonerate their client from this murder of her ex-boyfriend. Let's take a look.
Listen to the testimony from Guy Hand that he locked all the doors from the inside. More specifically, the glass door, which cannot be opened other than from the inside. Listen to the evidence of the Maryland policeman doing the welfare check and getting the answer, "I'm afraid." You're going to interpret the evidence as you see fit. That's your job. You took an oath. I'm sure you'll do it well and you'll do it correctly. The one question that you have to get by before you even consider Melanie Eam is, why did Guy Hand pick up the bloody murder, accidental, whatever it is, the weapon with which he stabbed James Berry?
So, Gene, I don't know if you're following this, but essentially the defense here is that it wasn't her who committed the murder, it was someone else. So, you know, based upon the first trial and this trial, where do you as a defense lawyer, we talk about this a lot, give the jury something to grab onto in the opening statement if you can?
He's given him a theory that the jury can latch onto. The other dude did it. And if he has any corroboration, whether it's DNA, fingerprints, eyewitness testimony, a statement, if he has anything that points towards that other person, then she may have either an acquittal or another hung jury.
Right. And, you know, what's interesting here is it's going to come down to a lot of the crime scene investigation and what was and was not present at that scene, like you're indicating, as to whether that corroborates or doesn't corroborate the defense or the prosecution. So let's take a real quick look at a crime scene investigator that took the stand and see whether or not we can glean whether or not this is going to be favorable to the prosecution or the defense.
So if you could tell us now, what did you observe when you walked into the room where the deceased was found?
When I walked into the room, I basically just saw some blood on the floors and on the bed, and then I also saw the decedent laying on the floor.
States 42. What does this photograph show?
That's from the doorway leading into the bedroom. Right. That just shows the decedent's feet and the furniture within.
Within the room?
Yes.
Photograph already in evidence.
So in this photograph, you have the front door over here, and you walk in, and then the hallway to the right where the pointer is, and then the yellow thing up there that has a number 1 on it, that's the knife. And then you have the white thing on the floor with the number, or the letter, I think it was, which is where the blood was, and then the hair at number 2.
Did you have the opportunity to take closer photographs of that knife?
Yes.
Did it appear to have any forensic evidence on the blade?
Yes.
And what types of forensic evidence did you see?
I saw 2 types. There was the blood, which was very obvious at the time, and then upon closer inspection, I saw that there was another piece of hair that was attached to the blade of the knife.
Did the hair on the blade of the knife be consistent with the color and the overall appearance of the hair that you saw in the hallway and the bed?
The color, yes.
It's 57. At some point, did you actually turn that knife over and photograph the other side?
Yes.
Did you collect that knife, place it into evidence, and take additional photographs back at headquarters?
Yes.
And is that what we see here in the States 60?
Yeah.
Okay, we're in the Eam case, and that is the prosecution on direct examination talking to a crime scene expert. Gene, they're bringing out photographs, diagrams, where the knife was found, the blood. It's an essential part of a prosecution case. You need to obviously get that in, and it also could be very, very impactful to a jury as they're seeing actually the body laying there. I think he's doing a good job. My only critique would be, sometimes we like to do this because we've been around the block so much, is that photograph with the body laying there, I would have had up a lot longer and been asking a lot more questions about it. What do you think?
It's sort of the opposite. Remember that trial down in Harris County, Texas, where you had the photo of the victim behind the witness box?
Yeah.
This is the opposite. You know, oh, there's the body, and then New York minute later you take it down. No, you have to I call it peeling the onion. Whenever you have a witness on a stand and they're describing an event or describing a photo, I told my prosecutors, peel the onion, get more details, have them talk about it, let them look at it. And he kind of didn't peel the onion. He threw it in the garbage pail.
Yeah, I've seen this. We were talking about this actually the other day. When I was training prosecutors, a lot of times I say, when you have your critical piece of evidence, let's say in a murder case, the knife, this wants to be the focal point of your question. Bring it out, identify it, see if you can get the judge to allow the jury to handle it if you can. Under certain circumstances, that'll be allowed or not. But don't just put it right back into the box and set it aside and ask questions. And then every question you want to ask should surround that knife. That should be the centerpiece of your questioning if you want to be able to emphasize it over and over again. It's a principle I call looping, where you're able to be able to keep bringing it back.
Yes. And the other thing is, you talk about giving the item to the jury. I've seen drug prosecutors where you have the drugs, you have a kilo of cocaine or 5 kilos, and, you know, what is this? It's 5 kilos. And then you move on. I had one judge say, well, members of the jury, would you like to hold the 5 kilos? And I got to tell you, Bob, 5 kilos is heavy.
You know, Gene, just real quick to that point, I saw a prosecutor very effectively one time take all the drugs and lay it on the bar right where the jury box is from beginning to end. And we're talking about whether it was intent. And he would say, is this intent to distribute? Well, I'll tell you what, that may not be able to talk, but it's telling you a lot. It was such an effective flourish in the courtroom. Yeah. I love seeing stuff like that. Gene, we got a full plate today. We got a lot of great cases, including this McStay family murder case where Charles Murr is on trial for eliminating and eviscerating an entire family. That is going to be a fascinating and is a fascinating case. And we also have Mediaite, one of my favorite segments to do here. It's where the media and the law intersect with one another. And we got a doozy today on the Manafort developments, and that's the gift that keeps on giving. We're going to go to a quick break, but stay tuned, because if you don't, you're not going to see all that great stuff. We'll be right back.
Like he'd like to kick his, I don't know if I can say this in court, can I?
You can say it.
A lot of cussing, a lot of cussing, screaming at each other, you know. I want to keep the business going, and he Chase wanted to wring his neck.
Okay. You indicated that you left, is that correct?
I did. It was very heated, and I walked out.
Why did you leave?
Didn't feel right. It was very scary. I left.
Did you yourself ever provide the defendant with any money?
I did.
When did you start providing the defendant with money?
I can't give an exact date.
Okay, so we have Susan Blake, the mom of Joseph McStay. So as I just indicated previously, there's this argument that she's there where Chase and Dan Kavanaugh are fighting over the business. The fighting was verbal, and it escalated to threats of violence, including Chase indicating that he wanted to wring his, that being Dan Kavanaugh's, neck. She was scared, and she left. And Jean Rossi, we found out at the end, she also lent Chase money as well. So, I mean, she may have actually been, if you're following the prosecution's theory of the case, lending money and helping the business go forward to the man who may have murdered her son.
That's bizarre. And if he indeed killed all 4 people, the parents and the 2 young children, he played the grieving mother like a fiddle. And that just shows how manipulative he could be.
Yeah, and I think it would get to the point that the prosecution wants to say is that is the kind of guy who could take out an entire family, a person that would do something so diabolical afterwards.
Yes, and that financial motive becomes even more important. I was trying to follow her, even though we have the audio. It's tough when you don't see the demeanor. But she gave some pretty good testimony describing the first and second meeting, and also she kind of described how he has a very explosive temper. Mm-hmm. And she had to leave a meeting because it was scary. This is probably a mother who's seen a lot of arguments in her day, and this argument just got completely out of hand. She had to leave the room.
Right. Now, of course, the defense theory of this case, Gene, is that this is something more than financial motive. Why would somebody, for just financial motive, kill the family, the whole family, including the kids? Well, like you just noted, and I think it's a good point, in the jurors' minds right now may be the kind of guy that can have an argument over finances that causes a lady to leave because she's afraid it's going to escalate to violence, and that would take money from her after killing her son if, in fact, the state proves that. This is going to be a fascinating case, and they're going to be coming back any minute, Gene, so we're going to be able to watch some more live proceedings. We're going to go to a break. We'll be back on the other end. Stay with us.
The WHO was, while claiming to be Joseph's best friend, the man who, while claiming to be Joseph's best friend, was forging checks from Joseph's business and taking money from him, putting his hands in the cookie jar. The WHO, the evidence will show, is the person whose cell phone activity for significant portions of time during significant days and times around the time of the murder is off the grid.
That's the prosecutor's opening statement in the McStay family murder case. Gene, I love this guy, all right? I mean, he's not just delivering data. He's painting a picture with his words, and how even the brutality of the murder, that's one thing, but how the animals tore at their remains, and that they decomposed to almost nothing but a few bones. And the greed's child is fraud, and the who and the how and the why. And with each one of those flourishes, every now and again, seemingly emotional but under control. Did you see how he was kind of looking at the defendant, like staring at him, like that's the guy who did it? I loved it.
Let me tell you something. There are a couple of great things he did. One, if you compare what he did yesterday, where he was doing the PowerPoint, he's turning to the screen, he's caught up in this technology, which can be devastating. He was doing old school, just a notepad, looking at the jury, talking extemporaneously, using words that were just like colors on a mosaic. It was beautiful. And here's one thing he did that I really like. I know some prosecutors do that famous, they turn and they point. He just turned and he looked. And his look was a dagger. It was a dagger.
It was slight, it wasn't overstated, and it was powerful, Gene.
Powerful.
And I agree. We were talking about the New Jersey trial yesterday where the lawyer got up there old school because he's from Jersey, hashtag Jersey, and he just did it without the PowerPoint presentation, with a notepad in front of him. Every now and again he looked at it, but he was the focus of attention. This prosecutor did the same thing here in this clip that we saw. He did an awesome job. He painted the picture with his words. It was amazing. Gene, stay with me, my man, because we got more of this trial that's coming up. Don't you go anywhere. You're here to 3 o'clock with me. We're going to go to a break. Stay tuned.
They asked him questions about the children, Gianni and Joseph Jr.
Always. You don't understand these kids. His boys were, I mean, they would get up on the kitchen.
I saw a video on YouTube.
Okay.
I saw how energetic they are.
That's a good word for it, energetic. They were corporal punishment. No, she didn't believe in it. She didn't believe in any kind of corporal. I swear, she would go, stop it, stop it, stop it. And she would do that for a half an hour until they lost interest in whatever they were doing. They'd go about doing something else. It was, oh God, yeah.
Gene, this prosecutor is really knows how to put a case together. He got the judge to agree to allow him to play the interview. Let's let our viewers understand what's going on. Charles Merritt, who's on trial, was being interviewed in a missing persons case. It had only been 48 hours since the people weren't around any longer. No one would even presuppose that there was some sort of murder, but repeatedly throughout the interview, and this is the reason why the prosecutor's playing the interview, he was constantly saying he was one of my best friends. And they were, and he was 5'8", and 175 pounds, and she didn't believe in that kind of. In other words, all the words and statements he's making is of them in the past tense, as if they're gone. And why would they be doing that when there wasn't even a suggestion at that time that they had been murdered? That is no bueno, as I love to say, for the defendant.
And the other thing is not only the past tense problem. He doesn't seem to show any remorse or any kind of sense that or sympathy that they could be missing. And you're right, the past tense really is devastating. Very devastating.
And I think that, the prosecutor is doing a really good job at the way they paired it together so that it's not overwhelming to the jury. The jury gets exactly what it is that the prosecutor is doing. And based upon the previous clip we showed with that powerful statement about how they just basically were eaten by animals and then disintegrated to just a couple of bones, and those rhetorical and physical flourishes looking towards the defendant, and now the defendant's words themselves coming out in the past tense. This guy really knows how to put a case together. But that is not to be left unanswered, because the defense has a theory in this case as well, and they're very good at what they're doing. Let's listen to the defense opening.
Allbrook House. Now, there's two theories that you could present for that. Immediate disposal. He took him out on the time he killed him on the 4th. Well, if he immediately disposed of the bodies, that means he would have kept them in the back of his truck for 2 days. Problem is, there's no blood in his truck. Now, we know blood spatter would be all over the assailant from crushing those heads with the sledgehammer. Blood would have dripped out of the back of the truck when you're driving around for 2 days. Because he drove all over, blood will move. There's no way complaining of smell coming from his truck. But remember, he lives in a busy apartment. He parks in the middle of all the other cars. It's not like he has his own little ranch or house that he can hide in. He lives in front of hundreds of people. Nobody said anything about that. No evidence of him moving bodies into any kind of garage or apartment or anything. He's got 4 dead bodies in the back. And on the 5th, we know he drove to L.A., as they say, looking for a dump site. Trial would actually highlight for what he was doing, because it's right in front of them. But they're ignoring it. But again, if he's driving around on the 5th, the blood again would be moving. Bodies would be shaking. Blood would be dripping out the back of this truck. When they looked at the truck and they had access to it, they did a thorough search, finding any speck of blood inside that cab, the floor, the seats, underneath, anywhere. Nothing. They checked both sides. There was nothing inside to show Merritt driving that truck had ever come in any contact with the blood that transferred inside there. Now the bed in the back, the large box. Funny thing is, the end of that bed, it has no lip. It is a straight drop off. It is a smooth, clean drop off. Nothing to catch blood from not rolling out. And the tailgate itself, when it attaches with this hinge, it sits off about 1/4 inch. So the tailgate doesn't even hold it in. Any blood coming out would drip out that back from driving around. Yet, we have no complaints again of blood being anywhere dripping out of the vehicle while he's driving, anywhere on the chassis, on the tailgate, underneath. There's nothing anywhere. And trust me, they looked. Because this was their guy.
I love this case because there's great lawyering on both sides. He's bringing out common sense arguments. Myself and Gene Rossi talk about this all the time. If you're a defendant, you have an opportunity to formulate opinions of jurors. You should do it in the opening statement. Not one drop of blood anywhere in the truck and 4 bodies killed. We'll be back after the break. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. We're in the McStay family murder case. Jennifer Mitchley. Gene, so far, what are you thinking about the information that's coming out?
Well, I got a couple of things to say. Number one, the information is helpful when you have video that could possibly help your case. I assume there's some movement or a car that will help the prosecution. But I'm a teacher, Bob. I'm a teacher. And this is taking way too long for what they need. If I had a judge from EDVA, he would be in her face. That's my comment. Yeah, I kind of agree. But I will say this. I mean, it's clear to me based on the manner in which the prosecution did their opening and this prosecutor now. I mean, these are definitely seasoned prosecutors, and prosecutors try cases differently. I too would be afraid I'm losing the attention of the jury in the case, but maybe she has a reason for doing that. Anyway, it is a fascinating case nevertheless, and this is some good lawyering all the way around. It's going to be a great trial for our viewers to watch. Gene, thanks for being with me. Stick with me. The viewers, stick with me. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Heard you after we got done with the last segment when they went back to the courtroom. You murmur under your breath there, too long. So let's pick up on that point a little bit. How would you do it differently? Would you just get that tape authenticated as quickly as possible and just start showing the relevant pictures? Is that what you're saying? Here's the thing. Obviously, both prosecutors for the government are very experienced, and the defense attorney's also phenomenal. They're all three of them, from what I see. But here's the trap that seasoned prosecutors get into, and you know what I'm talking about. When it comes to laying the foundation, getting a witness to talk about a video or a photo, sometimes we don't do the prep with that witness. And what I observed is that witness hadn't been properly prepped because she had to be refreshed so many times. And I would have pruned a lot of the questions. You know, do you have a camera? Have you looked at the camera? Was it accurate? Did it have a date? Boom. Then show them the slide or the CD, get it into evidence. Too many foundation questions. And you always have to think of the jury, Bob. Are they falling asleep? Are they getting bored? But here's the punchline. These videos are incredibly powerful. Why? They show a car coming out of the driveway in the dark of night. That's powerful. The dark of night. Gene Rossi, you are a man of words. You're a wordsmith. You're a legal wordsmith. That's why you got your own show there, Gene Rossi Radio Show. Let's jump back into the court and listen to some more of her testimony. Okay. That's Jennifer Mitchley, a neighbor in the McStay family. Folks, I got to be honest with you. Myself and Gene are here on the other end of the camera. This is really tedious testimony. And I think Gene Rossi would agree with me that I don't know what points are being scored here or not being scored here. It's just
too long. I'd be curious what you think of as an audience. Is there anything here that's really advancing the ball forward, Gene Rossi?
Okay, first off, the great Diane Rossi, with whom I have been married happily for 34 years, if I, in a public, high-profile trial on TV, ever mentioned when she took a shower before or after breakfast, I would be in the intensive care unit for a week.
Yeah, and off camera, I was randomly saying my wife enjoys Coca-Cola and orange juice. What these gratuitous comments. Oh, my Lord. Hey, guys, it's a fascinating trial, though. You got to give it that. And we're going to get past this witness and get into some really great stuff. This McStay family murder is about as brutal as it gets. The former business partner is the person that is sitting there as a defendant, accused of having murdered a father, a mother, and 2 kids. We got to go to break. We'll be back on the other end. You stay tuned. Welcome back. So this is the continuation of the McStay family murder case. Unfortunately for me, my time is coming to pass, but I will be back next Monday at the Law&Crime Network. I want to thank my great guest, Gene Rossi. You can find him at Rossi4VA on Twitter, and I would love it if you would join me on Twitter at RBianchiESQ, and subscribe to my YouTube channel at the Bianchi Law Talk, BIANCHI. You have a great day. See you soon.